Hello, brethren. We're going to have a lesson today called The Lessons from the Inspired Charts. We're going to go over three different charts from the message. The Zechariah 4 chart, the 144,000 and great multitude chart, and the last one will be Daniel 2 chart. We feel that there's some timely lessons that we'd like to point out in each one of those charts. And some things you may not be aware of that we want to bring out. We know that inspiration has blessed us with this Elijah message, which we know is the shepherd's rod. Micah 6:9 discusses that the Lord will cry out to the city, which is the church, that there's a message to hear. And he says, "Hear ye the rod." And that message came to us as Seventh day Adventists in 1930 from Brother Victor Hodoff. And so we've done a lot of other videos that you can learn about this message. But this particular lesson is going to be for the more advanced students of the Elijah message. And so we want to bring some points out on, and hopefully you'll be blessed by this presentation. We have prayed. We bowed down and asked the Lord to guide us and to say the right words and to enlighten the necessary lesson that needs to be told today. And we ask that you do the same, that you bow down before the great King who is able to lead us into all truth and claim John 16:13 and ask him for his blessings before you view this video. And he will be faithful and guide you. So to begin with, as it says, these are lessons from inspired charts. As present truth believers, we know that God sent us beautiful messages through his final message of Elijah. In this presentation, we will look at some specific charts and their unique and special message. And of course, in Shepherd's Rod Volume 2, the word of the Lord says, "While the enemy has succeeded in confusing the written word, God lightens the earth with his glory by these symbolic revelations, and by which he discloses the entire truth and uncovers the traps of the devil." And so one of the reasons why that the Lord guided the Elijah message to have so many charts and so many symbols is because you can't misinterpret symbols. They're pretty clear. And this helps to get, like the word here says, disclose the entire truth, the specific area of truth that he wants to get across. It's really simple and clear for us when we see it through symbols. So this is the beautiful thing about this part of the message. Okay, our first chart is found on track 6, page 18. And this is, of course, the inspired Zechariah 4 prophecy. And it's made into a symbolic chart picture of exactly what the wording says in Zechariah 4. And if you'll read Zechariah 4, this is the picture that you'll get from what the words say there. And we want to bring this because this is taken from one of the original tracks back in Brother Hodoff's day. How we got a hold of this track was through a brother, and he got it through a brother called Sidney Smith. Now, Sidney Smith, for some of you who may not be aware, is the husband, or was the husband, he passed away many years ago, of Sister Bonnie Smith. And many of us present truth believers, Davidians, know about Sister Bonnie Smith. She is one of two living members of Brother Hodoff's original camp on Mount Carmel in Waco, Texas. So she was actually on the camp, I believe it was from 1935, 36, to his death, which was February of 1955. She was on that camp, and even for a few months after that, she remained on the camp. So she was intimately involved with Brother Hodoff, and she knows a lot about what transpired on the camp. And so she later married, I believe it was 62, 63, she married Sidney Smith. And of course, this is one of Sidney Smith's original tracks that he got from the message that Brother Houteff put out. And if you look at this, and we'll take an arrow and we'll kind of show it. What we like about this is because, as we know, and we'll show further here in the presentation, Zechariah 4 mentions 7 tubes from the top thereof that go down to the candlesticks. And in this particular track here, in the original track 6, page 18, we'll count them. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and then right underneath this large tube, you can actually see 2 tubes coming in underneath that tube. And then, of course, so if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you have the 7th one, you have a total of 7. And this is key because that is what Zechariah 4 says, 7 tubes. Okay. Now, why I want to bring that out is because there's been some doctrine, and we'll also show you here in a few minutes what I'm talking about. Apparently, some brethren in the early days was not happy with this 2 tubes under the big bowl because it's kind of ambiguous. You have to really concentrate and see that there's one tucked in under here and another one right there, making a total of 7. Okay. And one brother who teaches the message and has many videos claims that this is just kind of a copy error. It's just like ambiguous. You really should ignore that. But then if you do that, well, then what's this white tube right here for? This white tube is the same tube that's the one that's tucked underneath the big pipe there. If you see the following direction there, you notice that little small tube there, and then the further of it is this white tube. Now, to say that this white tube belongs to this last one here at the end is to make the whole tube crooked. You see where it ends, and then it jumps over to here. So that really doesn't hold water, what this brother says about this being some type of error or typo, or, it is what it is. And that's why I think the message shows to test us, to see if we're aware, if we're really taking careful notice that inspiration is going to make a chart backed on what the word of Zechariah 4 says. Okay, so this is a very key and very important to learn this lesson from Zechariah 4. Okay, so basically back to that interpretation. In Zechariah 4, this is such the beautiful interpretation because God shows us how we are to understand his truth. You see, we as human beings, as not prophets, not gifted of the Lord to be a prophet, but rather be a student of the word, are not gifted to know on our own what the message says unless we are guided by his authorized prophets. And that is his word given down through time in the Holy Scriptures. And this interpretation of Zechariah 4 is very clear. The trees represent the Old New Testaments. The golden oil is the word of the Lord, the Bible, during the Christian era. And the 2 pipes are the 2 prophets authorized to interpret the Bible during the Christian dispensation. Now, why we say that this is Zechariah has to be during the Christian dispensation is because this has to be a complete picture of both testaments. And of course, you can't have the Christian dispensation without the New Testament. So when Zechariah foresaw this vision from the Lord, he saw time down into the Christian dispensation where this symbolism would take effect. It would be truth. And it wasn't until the 1930, when the Elijah message came to us as Seventh-day Adventists, that this was known. It was hidden all the way up until this time. And I think it may have even been a few years after that, 1932, 33, right in there, 34, when the message actually disclosed the true meaning of Zechariah 4. So let's go continue here. 7 tubes, God's ministers who take the oil, truth, from the golden bowl to the churches. And so that's key. In other words, we know that because of this symbolism, though these ministers today, and even back in the days prior, since our church came in 1844, there's been many who do not abide by this uh, scriptural method that the Lord gives. And these ministers, these teachers, go directly to the trees with their own pipes, and they gather what they think is the oil and they put it into the bowl. Okay, this is not approved by the Lord. The Lord has two pipes, two prophets that he authorized in the Christian dispensation, and that, as we know very clearly, is Ellen White and Victor Houteff. These are the ones in his last days for his last church that are authorized by him to take from the Bible the golden oil and put the correct interpretations into that bowl. And we see right there the golden bowl means the storehouse of present truth. And that means the word interpreted. Okay, it's very important that we understand that there's no, as 2 Peter says there, that the prophecies are not open to any private interpretation. Okay, so we have to be very cautious of when this is prevalent all throughout the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Okay, all throughout YouTube videos, you see these private interpreters coming on and say, well, see this scripture, that means this, and they do their private construction. Okay, so God foresaw that would happen. And indeed, it has happened. It's happened in spades all over the Seventh-day Adventist Church. This is a practice. And we'll get to more in that during this presentation. And so the candlestick means the church membership. And that's exclusive of the leadership, because we see that the 7 tubes represent the leadership. So the candlestick is the membership that is fed from the 7 tubes, which are the ministers giving the interpretations that are brought down from the 2 prophets that are authorized to put that truth into the golden bowl. And when we understand that golden bowl, it has the Bible, it has spirit of prophecy writings, and it has the rod message, the shepherd's rod writings. And this is the true golden bowl and what's inside it. And the rod actually says in track 6, page 2425, the summary of what Zechariah 4 tells us. This symbolic unit, having demonstrated that the Bible can be rightly interpreted only by the Spirit that dictated it, shows that the church can be led into all truth only by Spirit-controlled method through the interpreters, 2 golden pipes, who alone are qualified and enabled to bring forth meat in due season. Golden oil from the scriptures, olive trees, into the storehouse, golden bowl of present truth. And in turn, through the ministers, the 7 tubes, who are alone, are to pass on from the bowl the oil to the church, candlesticks, that it might illuminate with the light of life this dark and dying world of ours. A beautiful summary that the message tells us of Zechariah 4. Now we're going to go over a little bit about why we have to be cautious and be aware that unfortunately, like we said before, there has been some doctoring of the charts. And I don't say that the doctrine is of evil intent. It certainly is not of evil intent, because there is, and we showed in that original chart, there is a little ambiguity there. In other words, you have to really strain to see there's a total of 7 tubes. So this chart here can be found in many of today's Trek 6. They don't show the original picture chart that we showed you prior in this presentation. They show this one. And of course, they make it more plainer now. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you see they just have 1 under this tube. Okay, so they do this to show that it's the 7 pipes. Now, do we approve of this? No, we don't. And we should just stay with what the message shows us. And there's some other charts that show, just to show you how crazy this is. And I know, like I said, there's not evil intent here, but in between, after this large pipe here, one of the prophets, there is a space, an air space in here. You see, you got the, follow the arrow here, you got the outline of the bowl, right? You got the bowl here, then you've got this tube coming down. And then after this tube, where that second tube is, there is a space of air there. And they even eliminated the bowl outline. So it's crazy. Take a look at that if you see it down the road on other charts. They have eliminated this other chart and has a space of air there. So that's what they're trying to say, is that Brother Hanuf and the prophet drew something and then decided to stop the continuation of the bowl outline and make air there. Does that make any sense? No, it's totally ridiculous. So there's some doctrine going on here, and that's what we just wanted to bring to your attention. That's why we've brought the Zechariah 4 chart, so that you can be aware of what is really happening. The message doesn't change, though. That's what the important thing is. The message is still the same. And even though chart is doctored here, the same point, the same lesson from Zechariah 4 is taught. So we don't, like I said, we don't declare this as evil necessarily, but we do want you to be aware of it. Okay, our next chart is the 144,000 and the Great Multitude chart. And why we want to bring this to their attention is because, take a look down here on the right side. What you see is what's called the first fruits. And we all know that's from Revelation 7, verses 1 to 4. And we know that as the 144,000. And if you look closely at this picture of all the people, what do you see right down here on the left front? You see a picture of a child, okay? Then it says the first fruits. So this tells us that among, not with, but among the 144,000 are going to be little children. You see that? So this makes it very clear, because there's been some misrepresentation of this 144,000 teaching down through the years, especially from those brothers that want to say there's really going to be more than 144,000 sealed from the church. Those are known as the classic those with promoters. And what they'll say is, yes, there's going to be 144,000, but what about the children? What about the babies? Where are they? They have to be those with the 144,000. Well, right here we see from the chart, no, that's not true. They're going to be a part of the 144,000. So this includes, the little children, and no doubt among this vast throng, there's going to be even littler than this. There's going to be probably some babies here. Okay. So we have to understand the 144,000 first fruits includes those among them. This is what the chart is saying. This is what the inspiration is saying. We can't ignore that. We can't teach otherwise. course, Revelation 7 to 4, 1 to 4 says, after these things, I saw four angels standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor sea, or on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the four angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed. There were sealed 144,000 from all the tribes of the children of Israel. So, brethren, we can't get any clearer than this. The number is 144,000. It's not 155,432. It's not 283,044. Okay, it's not those with. It's only 144,000. That's what the message says, and that's what we have to stick to. Those that add are in violation of the solemn warning in Revelation 22, 18 and 19, where the Lord warns that you do this and you will have serious consequences, and you be found guilty. So we have to teach according to what the message teaches us. Okay, now this one quote, and we could bring 50. Okay, there's 50 quotes similar to this showing under only 144,000 sealed from the SDA church at Ezekiel 9 church judgment. But here's the most powerful one that we've ever found. Notwithstanding the fact that in the closing work for the Seventh-day Adventist denomination, only 144,000 are to be sealed, according to Testimonies, Volume 3, page 266. And you can find that in the answer, Volume 3, question 54. We have dealt with many brethren, especially on our Facebook Truth Tellers ministry, that have come to post reports and comments about no, there's going to be more than 144,000, and they give their standard 10 or 12 quotes from the message that seem to indicate this, but that is misinterpretation. Okay, why is that? Because you can see for yourself that the message teaches this, not that other ambiguous quotes that they show. This clear understanding of the message, this quote right here. And like I said, this is just one of 50 that is very powerful, but this seems to be the most straightforward that we can stand upon. Okay, let's go now to Daniel 2 chart. And here we want to highlight a very important aspect of the lesson that Daniel 2 gives us. This chart is the chart that the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist people promote. This is the one from the message. Okay, now take a look, because we're going to show you the typical picture that is shown among Seventh-day Adventist leaders. And of course, we all know that many of them, if not 99.5% of them, have rejected the Lord's shepherd's rod message for one reason or another. They have rejected it, mainly because they've been told lies and misunderstandings of the message down through time. But this chart here, pay close attention to the stone here as it hits the world, this statue, and hits the 10 toes, the present world, and destroys the present world. But where does it come from? Take a look here. Is that not the mountain? Sure it is. So this whole chart, this whole lesson is based on symbols. And so if we're going to try to find out what this stone is, we better find out what this mountain is, because that's where the stone comes from. Makes common sense, doesn't it? And this is the big failure of the Seventh-day Adventist leaders. This thing right here, this mountain, no worries. Don't need to really touch upon it. All right, here's a typical picture of Daniel 2 given to us by many of the Seventh day Adventist leaders and even the brethren. This one happens to be from a video that we found on YouTube. Seventh day Adventists put this out. And take a look at this stone, okay? Where's it coming from? Heaven. See? You've got it way up here in heaven. That stone, they say, is coming from heaven, which they say this because they want to say that this stone is Jesus. And we all know, or many of us know, that the Seventh day Adventist traditional teaching says that the Daniel 2 prophecy is about Jesus coming down and destroying this earth's kingdoms. Okay. But it's not the truth. Okay. Jesus sends some other interpretation to that is true, the real truth of Daniel 2. And we'll get into that here as we go. Okay, so we want to take a look at some more of this. Some SDA pastors and leaders who teach and taught the wrong interpretation of Daniel 2 prophecy. And these are well known. Stephen Bohr, Doug Batchelor, Steve Wohlberg, Kenneth Cox, Walter Veith. These are 5 big leaders among our church. And they teach misinterpretations of Daniel 2, very important misinterpretations. And the usual misinterpretations are, number one, the stone is Jesus coming from the sky. And we've already shown you that cannot be correct. Number 2, no explanation of the meaning of the mountain from where the stone comes. This is a non-subject many times when we hear the Daniel 2 reports and teachings on this. Number 3, they ignore that it says in the days of these kings. Do you see that little important word in? This is very key, bros, because this shows, brothers and sisters, this shows when this prophetic Daniel 2 prophecy takes place. In the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. Notice when they teach this prophecy, they teach it is after the days of these kings. So pay close attention next time you see a Seventh day Adventist teaching on Daniel 2. They always put that because that's according to their own ideas. Their ideas that the stone comes from the sky, it's Jesus, and destroys the kingdoms. And this is all after the kingdoms have been destroyed that the stone comes. I mean, it's all convoluted. It's very convoluted. But if you'll remember how the word actually teaches from the Bible, in the days of these kings is the time that those kingdoms will be destroyed. And who destroys them? The 144,000. That's what the message says, because that's a part of the church. And we know that if you'll study the scriptures and study the interpretations, Daniel himself calls the people of God the mountain of the Lord. So we know that the mountain is symbolic of the people of God, the church. And without hands is symbolic of a miracle, of something that doesn't have to do with men. Man has hands and he does his work with hands. But this was done. That section of people was cut out of the mountain. And so that's very important to understand. That's the reason why they say with no hands, because a section of people was cut out from the greater section of people, the mountain. And that is the 144,000. And they are who come in the days of these kings and destroy the kingdoms. And this is all beautiful prophecies that we need to learn about. So when we talked about the Seventh day Adventists teaching the false ideas on Daniel 2, they really don't teach it from Ellen White, because this is an actual Ellen White statement when a brother, I believe it was 1962 or 63, sent in a request to the Arthur White estate. And he said, Can you give me references showing that the stone is Jesus in Daniel 2? This is the response. Ellen White touches on the matter of this vision of Nebuchadnezzar rather lightly, so we are unable to direct you to any statement from her pen on this matter. This, of course, is to the letter to Bro Mueller from Arthur White, secretary of E.G. White's publication. Arthur White was actually the grandson of Ellen White, and at that time he was the editor or the secretary of the Ellen White publications. So we see this stone being Jesus does not come from the spirit of prophecy, but from some Seventh-day Adventist pioneers through their private interpretations, handed down to us through time without careful investigation. And so the Lord knew all about this. This is the key thing about understanding how the Lord works, is he foresaw all these mistakes, all these things. That's why he needed to send, as his Malachi 4:5 prophecy says, I will send you Elijah just before the great and dreadful day. So he knew there was somebody that needed to be a restorer. First, he starts restoring the truth. That's what the message does. It tells us the true interpretations of several prophecies. It reveals new prophecies from the scriptures. It tells us about the premillennial kingdom, which Sister White did not have light on. And it tells us many, many things, how to get sealed, the abominations in the church. It fills us up, brethren. Just like the parable of the 10 virgins, it gives us that extra oil that enables us to get to the kingdom. The same thing in Revelation 3. The Lord counsels us to buy gold tried in the fire. Extra oil. We need this extra truth. And what is that? It's the fourth angel message. And you can find some of our videos that describe this fourth angel message, but that is the rod message that joins with the three angel message to give it power and force. So the Lord is not remiss. He has not forgotten his promise to bring us Elijah. And so we would do well to read and study the Elijah message. So when Daniel 2 says that there will be a kingdom set up in the days of these kings, we can go through scripture and find so much support. You see, the Bible supports it all different ways, and one prophet will support another in his own interpretation, but they all have that same key idea. And so we read in Isaiah 2, verse 2 and 3, in the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and all nations will stream to it. Many peoples will come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways so that we may walk in his paths. The law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Now, when is this word to come from? What time? In the last days. You see that? In the last days. So next time you talk to a Seventh-day Adventist pastor, you can ask him about this. And I'm sure if you don't get a false interpretation, you will get a I don't know. That should not happen, brothers. This should be known, because this is talking about our end times. And that was the purpose of the Elijah message, to tell us exactly what will transpire in our day. It is our present truth. And it teaches us, it guides our feet perfectly so that we know who we are, why we're here, and where we're going. This is key, because the Lord is not remiss on any of this stuff. He wants us to have the whole package. He's not going to leave us in dark on anything. And that's the truth. He wants you to be enlightened. The only way you're going to be enlightened is to trust his word, that he said he would bring a prophet, Elijah, right before that dreadful day, that great and dreadful day. Great for the ones that escape, as Isaiah 66, 15 to 20 speak about. Great for those that escape. Dreadful for those that do not. Ezekiel 9 tells us about the dreadful end of what's happening among our church. So we hope you've been blessed. We wanted to get this out there because the time is very, very short, brethren. And we are getting to the end of the Seventh-day Adventist probation. We see Iran, Iraq, we see all those Israel, we see all Russia, China, all the United States, all the big nations ready for war in the Middle East. That's going to happen very quickly here, very soon. We have to be ready. Once that happens, we are told in track 14, page 22, the church purification comes. So right in the midst of this war, it's going to be a double whammy. The world's going to be shocked because of this great war, and shocked, a double shock, because of the church judgment. So can you imagine the double whammy that's going to hit the world very soon? And when that does, you may come in at that time. Praise the Lord if you do, but that's your final wake-up call, your final time to get right with the Lord. It's like imagine the ramp on Noah's Ark. That thing is just starting to inch up, and you running on there, and you jump onto the ramp. That's the time where some may come into this message right during that war. Why? Because they remember reports like the one you're hearing right now. This is truth. There is a gigantic war happening right now, and Israel is taking the brunt of it. And that's what the message tells. The unbelievers must be cleared out of the land for his promises to be fulfilled. And we just read in Isaiah, what is that? To set up the loud cry headquarters, so that the great multitude, Revelation 7:9, can be called into his kingdom. And so he's given you, a Seventh-day Adventist who are listening right now to this presentation, the great opportunity to be among his elect, to be among those 144,000 loud cry givers. So it's in your hands. It's your decision. So let us close with prayer. Thank you, Father, for allowing us to do this presentation. May the people be blessed, and may they understand the hour that we're in, the very end of time. And may they come to you in humbleness. May they humble their hearts so that they can know your message and get rid of their pride, get rid of the self-sufficiency that many of us Seventh-day Adventists have, and say that they are naked, they're blind, they need you, they need to be covered, they need to learn your word. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.